Welcome to Offensive Points, my possum friends. Welcome to the Passel. We're all a big family here. A Passel is a family of possums, if you guys haven't put two and two together yet. But I found that very amusing when I first heard about it. And I found out recently that possums do not get rabies. So you hear that, folks? You're safe. You're safe with us. Today, we have AFC East previews. This is our long-running thing where we dive into every division, dive into every team in the division, and just kind of jump in there, mix it around, and tell you guys news that you need to know coming into the 2024 fantasy football and NFL season. So tonight, it's me and Billy. Billy, what's up?
Not much, Joe. I actually like your point about the possums. The possum, you need a possum. They don't look pretty, mind you. Like, they're not always the, most awesome-looking creature. We can relate. But they're always helpful to have around, Joe. They're the ones that take out the bugs that have the diseases. They keep your yard kind of like clean. They're the ones that, they're doing the dirty work so that you can live a better life. That is exactly what we're doing, but with fantasy football content. So I kind of feel like we are definitely kindred spirits with the possums.
We are. I mean, we dive through the tall grass. We eat the ticks. Possums eat 5,000 ticks a year. Save you guys from alpha-gal. And win you fantasy football championships. What more could you ask?
It's the best thing we could possibly do. Well, Joe, before we get into any fantasy football stuff, I just have to say our Battlehawks are headed to the playoffs, Joe. They have a game. They have a game this weekend for home field advantage against the Brahmas. I'm not really. I think they're San Antonio, but I'm not for sure. And I'll be going to that game, and it'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to check this team out. Hopefully, our boy A.J. McCarron's back because it's been a very I don't know if you've ever heard of Manny Wilkins. I was not familiar with him until he took over 2 games ago. And he's been pretty up and down, Joe. He's not much of a passer. He's a good runner, but he's not much of a passer.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of last week's game, and got to tell you, it was not, the first week, Manny Wilkins was the savior. Now, if I remember correctly, didn't the Packers draft him back in the day?
I think so. I believe he was with the Packers, yeah. No, he was a Packer.
Yeah, so I remembered the name, and I was like, oh, man, I didn't even know about this guy. And then he looked pretty good, and then last week, that was rough. So, yeah, A.J. McCarron, save St. Louis. We need you.
Yes. Please come back. I know it's an ankle injury. I hope he can come back. But St. Louis is buzzing, Joe. I love going to these Battlehawk games. The energy in there it's just different than like a Cardinals game, which is kind of like a laid-back, chilled experience. Blues games are pretty intense, but there's a lot of them. So you have, the Battlehawks atmosphere just has that kind of like good, clean energy that like hasn't been watered down by years of disappointment yet.
Yeah, they really do. And it's kind of like you just went on a NASCAR infield and you just said, hey, everybody in here, come to this football game. And it is a giant party. There's streamers being thrown at players. People are getting kicked out of the stadium. It's a great time.
No, it's a fantastic time. All right. Well, like Joe said, we are here to do the AFC East division preview. Like he said, we do every division for the next 8 weeks. We will be going through and breaking down each team in each division. And this week we are starting with the AFC East. That is the Buffalo Bills, Miami, New England, and the Jets. So, Joe, I think we should start with the Jets today. I was tasked with handling the Jets, so we'll go through it real quick. So the Jets coming off an extremely disappointing 2023 season. Aaron Rodgers played 3 entire snaps before his Achilles decided to peace out for the season. He is supposed to be back, I believe, to start the beginning of the season. We thought he was going to come back for Christmas time. Well, we didn't think that. He and his shaman believed that he was going to come back at the beginning of the end of last season's, but that didn't end up happening. So he should be good to go at the beginning of the season. Aaron Rodgers is starting out as QB 20, according to the underdog data. Personally, QB 20, I don't mind taking that risk. I mean, that is basically a freebie. If you're in a 12-man league, especially, and there's one QB, he's going as a backup. You could do worse as your backup quarterback. People were doing that with Tua last season. It ended up working out great. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely a guy. I know his age. I know his proclivity for going down 3 snaps into the season, but I think you could do worse than grabbing him as your potential backup. Onto the running backs. Breece Hall is the RB3 in fantasy football right now, according to Underdog. I actually think that's pretty correct. Right now, Israel Abakanda is the backup to him, but he is not going that way in Underdog drafts. It's actually Braylon Allen, who's RB71. I don't know how that's going to shake out. We're going to tell more during camp. I think there's a little bit of rookie fever right now is kind of the one dictating how that's going. But Israel Abakanda is not even in the top 250, so they didn't even rank him as far as running backs go. But Breece Hall's your workhorse guy here. We thought there was going to be splits the last couple seasons. There is not going to be a split now. It's Breece Hall's backfield, and we're all just living in it. I'll quickly get through the pass catchers. Wide receivers, we got Garrett Wilson, who's currently wide receiver 8. We've got Mike Williams, wide receiver 52. Malachi Corley is wide receiver 74, and Alan Lazard is wide receiver 106. Alan Lazard might not make the team based on what I'm seeing in training camp so far. He has been awful. I know Aaron Rodgers loves him, so he's probably still going to get a chance. He's looked terrible. Malachi Corley, Aaron Rodgers does not like rookies, but that has to change. Like, it has to. It's not going to work if it's just the Garrett Wilson show. I don't think it's going to work that way. Mike Williams, Joe knows, not an NFL player. And Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 8. I think that's actually about right. I would take Garrett Wilson as my potential first wide receiver if I went running back heavy, or if you went 2 wide receivers, he would be a great option as your second wide receiver when everybody grabs running backs. And then Tyler Conklin, non-factor, tight end 22. Aaron Rodgers hates tight ends. All right, Joe, how about it? What do you think about the Jets this season after me saying all of that?
Well, after you said all of that, I think what I really gathered is I kind of want a shaman. I don't know how you get it. I think I need like a fundraising shaman to follow me around so we can have some good things happen.
Ask Aaron. He's got all sorts of stuff. Potions and everything.
When he ran out with that American flag and they had the whole stadium like that, I was just like, oh, this can't end well. But yeah. Anyway, no, I think you're spot on. I love Breece Hall. I love the talent. I brought up a couple pods ago how he was fairly reliant on the big play last year to get his points, and he was very efficient with his touches for the most part. We saw him kind of come on as a pass catcher by the end of the year, even more than he already was. So I like Breece Hall. I think some stability on that offense with an actual quarterback will only lead to great things. Love Garrett Wilson. Absolutely love Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams coming off the ACL in a new offense. I mean, he kind of does things that, I guess we could say like he kind of plays like a Jordy Nelson-esque deep ball route that we've seen successful in the past. But
yeah,
I mean, the injuries are really starting to mount. Father Time is not kind to us, as we know. So I don't know. The guy I'm really excited about is Malachi Corley. I think, he essentially can be Randall Cobb immediately. And we all know how Rodgers wanted Cobb with him and all that stuff. And I think the routes he runs, the underneath stuff, I think Malachi Corley is a phenomenal value. And not to get too much rookie branks, I know it's that time of the year, but he is actually the guy outside of Garrett Wilson that I would want in this offense. So pretty much just kind of targeting those 3.
I agree completely. And as far as like deeper leagues go, does Jason Brownlee or Xavier Gibson, are those potential bench stashes for you, or is it just a guy that's on the waiver wire that you're going to put a star next to and think like, well, kind of just feel things out a little bit. We'll see how it's going. Are either of those guys interesting to you?
I mean, preseason darling Jason Brownlee. I don't know how many highlights we're going to see of him this year. I've already heard some talk firing up. So, yeah, Brownlee's a guy I've had on my taxi squad. He was one of my first cuts when I had to make room on my roster. So I can't say that I'm overly hyped about him, but I think out of those 2, he has a chance to actually make some noise. And he looked really good in the preseason. So we'll see. I know Aaron Rodgers liked him. He spoke glowingly of him, which is rare. So
that's true. I also think Jeremy Ruckert could have a moment on this team. Not that Tyler Conklin's bad. I just think that if there's room for improvement at a position, it's definitely the tight end position. And while I don't think Ruckert's going to right out take the spot from him in training camp, I wouldn't be surprised if Ruckert towards the middle of the season may be a guy that's getting some targets. I mean, again, don't think he's ever going to be like a top 12 tight end. Don't even think maybe he's top 20. But he's a guy to have on the radar, I think. Definitely in Dynasty, he needs to be on rosters, which I'm sure he is. But He's a guy I'm also sort of interested in as far as this offense goes. And then just real quick, I know the backup says Tyrod Taylor, which is the backup to have, but dynasty-wise, you need to pay attention to Jordan Travis. I know that he had a massive injury at Florida State, and so that's going to water down a lot of people's expectations for him. He is kind of old as well. However, the guy was a proven winner, and he was doing a lot with his legs and with his arm in college that were very impressive at Florida State. I think a lot of people forget how good that Florida State team was. And they maybe think it was all Keon, Coleman, and Xavier Legette. Not with Xavier Legette. Can't believe I just said that out loud. Johnny Wilson. But I will have to say, I think those players were both elevated by Jordan Travis quite a bit. And so I'm kind of excited to see him potentially build into a backup quarterback and potentially a starter for years to come. So I would go out and grab Jordan Travis if you haven't in Dynasty yet. Not to redraft, mind you, just a dynasty play.
Yeah, and that's really good because I was just in a rookie draft for a Superflex league, and I was able to get him in the 5th round. So people are not seeing it the way you see it, Bill. So it's a phenomenal stash. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry, he's old and he's coming off an Achilles injury. So really, we don't know what this season's going to look like. We could be seeing him sooner rather than later.
And I mean, who actually trusts Tyrod Taylor to be the backup, you know? Like, I'm not saying he's going to come in and win immediately if Aaron Rodgers was to go down again, which I do not want to happen, by the way. Would rather this Jets team be good than bad. All right, before we get on to potentially what their win-loss is, can you just give us a quick – Tareq Cohen was signed today. I don't know if he's going to make the roster. He's 28 years old. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of a rundown on Tareq Cohen? You know, people may be rushing out to their waiver wires to grab him. I know I did, at least in one league today.
I saw that. It was a good get. Tareq Cohen is electric with the ball in his hands. He was a kick returner, a punt returner for the Bears for a long time. When he was playing running back, get the ball in his hands, and he beat people more often than not. So this is one of those really fun new kickoff rule signings that we're seeing. And I think Tareq Cohen could come in and be their kick returner. I mean, he's got the speed as long as he's healthy and fully recovered from that horrible string of injuries he's had. I wouldn't be overly excited about getting him on my team, but I am going to be excited to watch him play for the Jets this year.
That's fair enough. I mean, I'm going to grab him in Dynasty just in case. You just never know. But he has an uphill battle, I think, to make the roster at all. So I think he might just be a plus that room is just crazy with talent anyway. So I do hope he makes the roster, though. And who knows? With the cook-off rules, you might be right. Maybe he can make some noise in that department at the very least. All right.
And wait, before you get into it,
okay,
you bring up a great point. I'm going to go off on one of my tangents right here because I was explaining this to one of the guys in our leagues the other day. Is the running back farm, and Tareq Cohen is the perfect plant to put in one of your rows in your running back farm. Because if you have room on your roster, just grab guys. Running backs get hurt all the time. Guys come out of nowhere. I mean, there's a waiver wire running back, darling, every single year. And a lot of them are deep. Look at Kyron Williams last year. Look at Isaiah Pacheco, Cordero Patterson. So just add guys to your roster. You just add them. Just keep farming the running backs, and eventually you're going to get some good produce out of that. So that's my nugget for today.
Plus, and like not even just that, like Raheem Mostert for the first 5 years of Raheem Mostert's career didn't mean anything. He was RB1 for a lot of last season. So you never know what and where or who is going to make things happen for people. And I definitely will tell you this, and we've learned this lesson. It's been a couple years now, but everybody should learn as we're going along. When a new coach hops to a new team and they bring in a player like Arthur Smith went to, Atlanta, brings in Cordell Patterson, boom, he's got a job. Or he's got a spot on the team. Mike McDaniels leaves San Francisco, brings Raheem Mostert with him, boom, got a spot on the team, one of the best running backs last season. So it's definitely something to monitor if the person's joining a new team. Not saying that happened with Tareq Cohen, but I'm just saying in general, you just never know. You never know who's going to go where and what that's going to mean for somebody's playing time. Okay, Joe, the Jets over-under win total is 9.5.
All right. So week 1, the Jets are going to San Francisco. That'll be fun. And then they got Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, Indianapolis, and they have a bye week in week 12. And then Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Los Angeles, Buffalo, and Miami.
I'm over.
What was the total again?
9.5. Just got to win 10.
No, looking at this schedule, yeah. I think there is a lot of room.
Any schedule that has things like Minnesota, Arizona, Tennessee, I see those as mostly winnable, but like potentially losses, but mostly winnable. And the Jets defense, we're not going to talk about it because we're letting the IDP side talk about the divisions. But this defense is no slouch. And if they have a good offense with this defense, they should be a 10 to 11 win team. Theoretically, that's how it should play out. The Jets, it never works out that way because they are one of the most unlucky franchises. But based on what we have on the paper right now, not karma or anything out in the atmosphere, based on the paper, I think this is a 10 to 11 win team, just based on what's on the paper. And I think that's what we have to go off of when we're talking about betting the over-under.
No, absolutely. The one concern I have is the pass catchers. I mean, I think they should probably bring someone else in, some veteran squirrely guy that they can throw out there that'll be reliable in the least bit. But yeah, I don't know. My only observation here, I'm going to go over as well, but I think they need to take a shaman and actually smudge that stadium or the locker room or something. I mean,
just
they need
the
to
turf.
get some.
Just the turf.
They need some spiritual action. Yeah, they really do. It's crazy.
So
we're going over.
Over it is. All right, Joe, off to Miami.
Off to Miami. All right, so obviously, Mike McDaniel and Frank Smith are back. The notable addition in the coaching staff this year is Anthony Weaver. He comes over from Baltimore. He was the assistant head coach and the defensive line coach for the Ravens. So it'll be interesting to see how he works with these defensive guys. You know, we brought in Jordan Brooks, Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Shaq Barrett, Jonnu Smith, and a couple other more depth pieces along this line. The big loss here is going to be Christian Wilkins. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, you are not replacing Christian Wilkins, especially with what they have on the roster. That's just not going to happen. They lost Brandon Jones, Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker. And for the offense, especially, we lost Robert Hunt, which is not great. So, you know, the draft comes around. They pick Chop Robinson. They get Patrick Paul, who's kind of a toolsy lineman. The exciting one is round 4, where they traded a future third, a 2025 third, in the 4th round to secure Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. So we'll dive into him in a minute, but we're very excited about Jalen Wright. We got Mo Kamara, Malik Washington, who's another guy we're pretty high on, at least I am. But anyway, so that's kind of the new look team here. When we got to talk about Tua, though. So Tua's Tua. Tua's fine. Tua's good. Tua's a good quarterback to have on your team. But he was 34th in the NFL against pressure. He had a 54 QBR, and that is really not good when you lose Connor Williams and Robert Hunt in the same offseason. So I don't know. Defenses are gonna get pressure up the middle on this team, and I like Tua. Again, he relies on his accuracy. He's not going to wow you with any physical stuff, but he's going to get the ball to the receivers. I'm just a little bit worried that he might have a few more down games this year than he had last year. So, I don't know, just my 2 cents on Tua. Tyreek Hill is an absolute stud. I do think the target total is going to come down a little bit with some of these additions. They tried to get him to 2K last year. It didn't work, but he got close. So I think we're going to see him spread the ball around a little bit more this year, but he's an absolute stud, so he should be treated as such. We got Jaylen Waddle. Simply put, he is the wide receiver 2, and Hill is the wide receiver 1. Hill had 67 more targets than Jaylen Waddle last year, and, you know, Jaylen Waddle finished as wide receiver 34. We kept saying, what's wrong with Jaylen Waddle? Well, one, the Dolphins as a whole could not really do anything in the middle of the field. Which I will get to in just a second. I think there is an opportunity for much better days ahead for that. But pretty much they were just throwing it to Hill and Waddle on the outside. And I think Waddle could be a better player if you hit him in the middle and let him pick up some yards on his own. So hopefully we can see a little bit more of that this year. But he was wide receiver 34 last year, did miss the last 2 games of the season. So where he's going in drafts, I'm fine taking Jaylen Waddle. If you're in Dynasty, I would put in an early – well, let me revise that. I would wait till November when Jaylen Waddle is doing the same thing he did last year and throw out a trade and just get Jaylen Waddle on your team, because when Hill does retire or move on, Waddle is going to be your wide receiver 1 on that team, and he should get the contract to state that pretty soon here. They signed Odell Beckham. I mean, he had 500 yards to the Ravens last year. He had averaged, two and a half receptions a game. So I think that's pretty much what you're going to get out of him now. I'm not too excited about Odell Beckham. We got Eric. I'm just going to call him Exukama. I don't know how to say that name, but he is a guy to monitor. He's 6'2", 210, and kind of different than a lot of the guys he has on the roster. He's a little bit more Debo-esque. They liked him in the preseason. He missed time with the neck injury last year. So if you have room on a tax or if you're in a really deep league, he's not the worst guy to pick up. Then we got Malik Washington, who was one of 10 Blitnikoff finalists last year. Completely different skill set to a lot of the guys on this team. He's a big yards after the catch guy. The middle of the field is going to be his realm. And he kind of thrives on contested catches for not being the biggest guy. So I think of all the wide receivers on this team, not named Hill and Waddle, Malik Washington has the best opportunity to get in there. And then I'm sure Braxton Berrios will be back because Mike McDaniel loves him. And then River Craycraft is probably going to be gone. Taj Washington probably going to be a kick returner, I think. I know a lot of people are pretty high on him. Another guy I'm very excited about here is the Jonnu Smith signing. So this is exactly what this offense needed. Miami was dreadful in the middle of the field and really relied on the deep ball way too much. So Jonnu can get those hard yards in the middle, and there's a ton of upside here. He's currently going at tight end 20, so you can have Jonnu Smith for completely free. I would float some trades out for him immediately. All right. That was the long-winded part of my spiel. You ready for the fun part, Billy?
Yeah, I actually am.
All right, let's get into the running back. So, Devin Achane. Do not get it twisted on my feelings for Devin Achane. Yes, he is a monster. Yes, he's super electric. And yes, insert praise here that everyone wants to give Devin Achane. He's awesome. I just want to get that out of the way before I temper your expectations for him. This man had 130 touches last year, which was 44th among running backs. He had an insanely efficient 7.8 yards per carry, but he was still 134 touches behind a guy that everyone hates on for being, he's too efficient with his touches, in Jahmyr Gibbs. So I've heard a ton of Jahmyr Gibbs like, he's not going to get to where he was because he was too efficient. This dude had 134 less touches than that. So just throwing that out there. Raheem Mostert was 20th on that list. He had 233 touches. So he had 103 more touches than Devin Achane had last year. And he's coming back. I know he's on the wrong side of 30. I know the injury history. We got really lucky last year. But Raheem Mostert had 21 touchdowns. So he's your RB1 until proven otherwise. And then they go out and they sign Jalen Wright. They draft Jalen Wright from Tennessee. I know the Tennessee offense was quirky, but he averaged 7.5 yards per carry in his own right. He's a great pass protector. He shows phenomenal receiving chops, and he's 25 pounds heavier than Achane. So all of this to say, I think we're looking at a very three-headed monster here. I do not think Devin Achane is going to break out, and he's going at RB8 right now, which is insane to me. I got to temper your expectations here. I mean, I'm not against drafting Devin Achane, but where he is going currently is outrageous. What do you think on that, Bill?
No, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that people like the love for Devin Achane has gone a little bit too far. He's not like he's a great flex player. It's the perfect person to put in your flex spot on your team. Treating him as if he's going to be your RB2 for the entire season is very stressful to me. They're not exactly the same player, so I hate that I'm even making this comparison because people are going to be like, what the fuck? But Tyrell Williams, you remember him on the Chargers?
Mm-hmm.
Where like most of the time you were probably going to get 3 catches for 100 yards and probably a touchdown. But there was always those 1 weeks where it'd be 3 for 18, and you'd be like, well, what am I? Okay, why would I start him? I think you're going to have similar results with Devin Achane this season. I think there's going to be certain games where it's the Jalen Wright game. You're going to have certain games where it's the Devin Achane game. And I think Raheem Mostert's going to get a pretty steady workload throughout, whereas, like, you're not going to get a big game. Like, you're going to get some big games. I don't think you're ever going to get a 200-yard game again. Those are very, very hard to get. But I do think there's a chance that he is good some weeks, bad other weeks. He's a fantastic best ball player. But as far as trusting him to be your RB2, you are playing a game that you don't want to be playing if you have money on the line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, people are even drafting him as their RB1, which we love the talent. But when I really dug in the weeds there and I saw that Jahmyr Gibbs had 130 more touches than Achane last year, blows me away. And now, if you want to tell me that you are just a gambling man and you're going to say, hey, Raheem Mostert has never been healthy for a full season until last year, I'll take you up on that. If you want to say, hey, I want to gamble my whole fantasy team on the fact that someone gets hurt, that's fine. I'm just not for it. I'm not for it. I know the guys are covering the – oh, go on.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, and even if he goes out, it's going to be the Jalen Wright show with Devin Achane still doing what he does. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, we're going to hand the keys off to Devin, like, Achane ever. Like, it's never going to happen. He's going to be a part of a two-headed monster. He may have games that he's better than the other monster in the backfield, but it's always going to be a two-headed monster with him. They just can't trust him when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty and you need somebody to go up the middle for those yards. I don't think Mike McDaniel's ever going to trust Devin Achane to be the one to do that. And that is a guy that you can't have on the field in those crucial moments of games because it's just not going to meet. It's not going to matter. So, and he's never going to be a goal line back. That's never going to happen. So I don't know. I this very inflated value of like Raheem Mostert's old, Devin Achane's backfield, like his time's coming. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. He is fast, and I do like him, but yeah, it's a little odd out here right now.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. I am a huge fan. I just cannot deal with these prices right now.
It's gone too far. That's what it is. It's gone too far. Like,
I mean, I think back to like last year when we were all like, "Hey guys, there's this guy named Devin Achane. The Dolphins just drafted him.
Yeah,
go out and get him. He's awesome." And then all of a sudden, it's this whole thing now. So,
if he was RB 15 to 19, I would be like, hell yeah, I'm all in, because that means he's probably a 4th to 5th round pick. RB 8 means he's going in the 2nd round.
Yeah, he's top 20 right now. He's actually at number 20. No. Absolutely.
No. What are you banking on? Like, you're going off of just thoughts and prayers, and I don't like playing the game based on that, Joe. Just can't do it.
Don't either. Again, if you're a gambling man and you want to draft him, go for it, but you have more cojones than I do. I know the other guys are going to do defense, but I just want to say that Jalen Ramsey is going to get Kyle Hamilton's role, and I'm real excited about that.
Okay.
Because he is free. He is free. You can get him anywhere.
He is free. But no, you're right about that. No, it's just I just don't know. I think the people with Raheem Mostert are going to end up winning again because they're going to get Raheem Mostert really late again, and they're going to end up with a guy that's going to, have the same talent. Mike McDaniels is a creature of habit. He's not going to just hand this backfield over to Devin Achane. No, not going to happen. And he wouldn't have drafted a running back as high as he did if he wasn't planning on using him. It just doesn't work that way.
See, that's my only argument. I know Josh was saying he's going to be a non-factor, not to say anything about that, but you don't trade next year's 3rd for a current year's 4th unless you plan to use this guy and you have a plan for him.
I mean, well, unless you're Kyle Shanahan. But other than Kyle Shanahan, every other coach, it works that way.
Crazy.
Kyle Shanahan's like, let me bring in Trey Sermon in the 3rd round. I'm never going to play him. Okay, cool. Kyle, thanks for doing that, man. It's great. It's fantastic.
Oh, man. Right, it's Trey Sermon. I might I have to give up my role here.
It can't happen. First of all, the player profile of both players, it just favors Jalen Wright more than it did. Trey Sermon I couldn't believe that happened when it happened, to be honest with you. That was shocking then. But whatever. It's neither here nor there.
You mean the RB2 in Indy? We're talking bad about him?
Yeah, I guess so. I can't wait to get the AFC South. We'll have to discuss that one out. All right. The Miami over-under is matching the Jets with 9.5.
Okay. So we're going to start off in Jacksonville. Then we're going to go Bills, Seahawks, Titans, and Patriots before having an early bye week. And then you get Indianapolis, Arizona, the Bills again, Rams, Raiders, Patriots, Packers, Jets, Houston, 49ers, Cleveland, and the Jets.
Jeez, man. That is not an easy one. Not easy at all. It's a losable game. I think I'm going to have to go under, weirdly. I think they're going to be a 9-win team, probably.
Yeah. I mean, when you dive into the schedule, first of all, for fantasy, weeks 14 through 17 are just miserable.
Yeah.
Defenses.
That came
Cleveland
to me as
was
well.
number one last year. 49ers were sick. The Jets are just going to be insane on defense, I think, this year. And then the Texans loaded up. They added everybody. So good luck, Dolphins fans.
Plus, they don't have a great defense. It's great individual players, and the IDP points will be there. But as a whole, probably going to be easy to move on this team quite a bit. And I'm sorry, I'm just one of those people that doesn't fully believe in Tua. Like, I just can't fully buy in. What he did last year, I can't take from him. It was way more impressive than I would have thought. But I just can't believe it's going to happen twice, Joe, because lightning doesn't usually strike twice unless you're like a volcano, but he's not a volcano. So don't know.
Yeah.
Don't believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the way this offense is built now, they're going to have a little bit more of a fighting chance when they do play good defenses, because last year that was not the case. But I'm going to go over.
Okay.
I'm going to go
I mean,
over.
I do think this is going to be one of the best divisions in the league if the Jets can hold up their end of the bargain. Should have been that way last year, but they had Zach Wilson crying and hiding under a table most of the games. So it's kind of hard to play games. Hard to play football, Joe, if you're hiding the entire game.
It truly is.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's head up and get us some buffalo wings up in Buffalo, New York. Joe, Josh Allen, QB1 right now. And I don't know if I fully get it because he did lose almost every one of his weapons. And they do want to try to take away his running ability, because they want somebody else running the ball into the end zone, taking those hard hits rather than him. I don't know if you can, get a tiger to change his stripes, but if you were going to, Josh Allen be the one. I personally will not be in the Josh Allen business this year if he's going as QB1. I just feel like that means he's going to get taken in the second round if you're in a 12-man league, and I just can't do that with a quarterback. And with this roster, it's going to be hard for me to verify or verify to myself to do that, because I can't believe it. But on to the rest of the team. Josh Allen is a very good quarterback, and if you get him on your team, you do have a good quarterback. So don't take me as that saying like he's going to be trash. For fantasy, he's going to be great. Running back, James Cook's going as RB13. I think that's about right. That's probably about where I would take him. I definitely think James Cook is going to outscore Devin Achane this year, and I wish Josh was here because he would definitely take a fireball bet on that. But he's not here, so we're not going to assume that's going to happen. But if I had to bet, I would bet James Cook would outscore Devin Achane this year. And the only other running back in the backfield that's actually charting on underdog right now is Ray Davis. Again, this might be a little rookie brain. He's RB48 right now. But I think the want of Josh Allen to not take those hits, Ray Davis is exactly the kind of guy you bring in to take those hits at the goal line. He's kind of a shorter back. He's 5'9", but he's built Ford tough. So he can take all of those hits and drive into that end zone like a Ford truck. And I think that's why they have him on the team. He might end up being better than RB 48, and he might end up being a good flex play if they actually do commit to him being the goal line back on this team. we'll see. I thought they brought in Leonard Fournette to do that last year, and that didn't end up happening. So we'll see. It might just still be the Josh Allen at the goal line show. Buffalo, balls in your court on that one. All right, let's get to the wide receivers. We have got 3 guys here, and it is all up in the air gambling-wise. You've got Keon Coleman going as wide receiver 40. You have Curtis Samuel going as wide receiver 49. And you have Khalil Shakir going as wide receiver 54. Those numbers are all next to each other. So that means to tell me that fantasy football players do not know what in the heck is going to happen with these pass catchers on this wide receiver core. And I'm here to tell you, I don't really fully know myself. My belief is that Khalil Shakir is the guy I would go after at this price because I do think there's a little bit of familiarity there. I did like what I saw from him in the playoffs. I think everybody kind of was like, okay, I could see this working out. I thought they would keep Stephon Diggs when they did that, but they didn't, so that's okay. He does kind of fill a slot role that I'm sure Curtis Samuel kind of thought he was going to be living in, so I'm not allowed to see how kind of that shakes out. But look, if Keon Coleman is as good as his press conferences are, then he's not going to be a guy you're going to have to worry about. Right now, wide receiver 40, by the way, it's not going to be that way when you get to actual draft time because training camp buzz on him is going to be through the roof. Every time you see a highlight of him, you might as well assume he bumped up 3 spots. Just my opinion. But, yeah, Keon Coleman, for the price you're getting him right now, is a guy you'd have to get on your roster. And then onto the tight ends, you've got Dalton Kincaid going as tight end 4. A little rich for my blood, but he is the best pass catcher on this team right now. And how they used him last year, he's going to be a PPR machine. And you also got Dawson Knox, tight end 31 right now. I think he might be a little bit more involved than this leads you to believe, just based on the pass catchers not being, super familiar with this offense. But I do think Kincaid's the one you want. Knox is going to have the games where he steals touchdowns from Kincaid, and we're all going to be pissed off about it, Joe. I think that's what we're looking at here.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm having a really hard time not putting Dalton Kincaid as my number 1 tight end, but it's Dawson Knox, and it's this offense as a whole.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on with it. I love Keon Coleman. I think your point about every highlight's going to bump him up is going to be yeah, he's a stud. His game works perfectly with what Josh Allen wants to do, so love that a lot. I'm less high on James Cook than you are, but
really? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the reasoning for that?
Well, I think you have Josh Allen there. We know the well-established thing that he's going to take it and run. I don't think you're going to coach him out of that, even if you tried to. You got Ray Davis there. Yeah, I think what we saw to James Cook last year was he should be more of a third down back type guy, and he was forced into a full-time role, and he was very good at it. But I don't think that they want James Cook at that size being beat up as much as he was. Now, I like James Cook a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think he's fine. RB13 is a little rich for me.
Okay. I mean, I think that if you got him as your second guy, or if you went wide receiver heavy, he is the perfect guy that you would want as your potential running back on a team where you went wide receiver, heavy at the top.
I'd be more fine with him as the RB2 as opposed to an RB1, but that wouldn't be
upset. You'd think at RB13 you probably were able to get like Breece Hall at 4 and then wrap back around and you get James Cook as the second guy at whatever that would be, pick, I can't do math, 19, something like that. I don't think that would be bad. I don't think you would be out of sorts there, but I get what you're saying. I just think this team is a total mystery on offense right now. Like, are people going to tell me that Josh Allen's going to be throwing for 250 yards every game? Because I have a hard time seeing it right off the bat. I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to do it, but it's just hard to read this offense and see that he's going to be able to do that without utilizing James Cook in the passing game and making one of these wide receivers Stephon Diggs, but we'll see if that can even happen.
Yeah. I will say MVS has been my best ball snag every late round just because he's going to have 3 or 4 of those games where he just goes off. So,
well, I don't know. You say that, but he also is the guy that you throw it to him and he can't catch the ball that matters just because.
Hot take. Okay. I think Patrick Mahomes throws a weird ball, and only Travis Kelce has figured out how to catch it.
You're blaming the wide receivers for the fact that they can't play with Mahomes? That
I'm
is your
blaming
take?
Mahomes because he throws a weird ball.
Okay, well,
I can't come up with
I would
another
argue the
reason.
best one figured it out. Like Tyreek Hill figured it out.
Yeah. Well, your studs are going to be able to figure it out. I'm just saying, I've never seen so many drop balls in my life, and I think Patrick Mahomes is the problem.
That's true. All right. As far as the end of the bench, though, guys, with this Buffalo team, I do feel like I need to mention it at least. You got Chase Claypool, you have Mac Hollins, you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you have Justin Shorter, who Josh thinks is going to be a stud this year. You have KJ Hamler, the Hamburglar, and you have Andy Isabella, who never really worked out with Arizona, but I guess eventually it could happen. I don't see any of these guys making any real dent other than apparently Joe's MVS, but that would be the other one. By the way, I don't think anybody's ever called KJ Hamler the Hamburglar, but I think it just fit. I just felt I had to go with it.
That is how we will refer to that.
No,
yeah,
but
your Isaiah Spiller theory has been just lodged in my head ever since. I'm just thinking about all the Isaiah Spiller theories we've had in the past.
They happen. I don't know why, but it just happens that way. I don't know. Andy Isabella was one of those, though.
Yeah, he was.
All right. Well, Joe, the over-under for this Buffalo Bills team is 10.5.
All right. So we got Cardinals, Dolphins, Jaguars, Ravens, Texans, Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs. Then we go 49ers, Rams, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Patriots. I am taking the under by a long shot.
Yeah. Because they are a good team, but they're replacing a lot on the defense as well, like as far and the offense. Like they're replacing everything. So one could argue this might be a transition year for them. And so a 9-win season could happen. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I can't see them getting to 11. I just can't see it in my head right now. 11-6, and they got to beat all the good teams. I mean, pretty much they had to beat every good team that's out there. They only get a couple of layups, but even like the Colts, for example, I don't think that's a layup. I mean, that's gonna be a tough game. Colts are no pushover. I mean, with Anthony Richardson out there too, who's a complete wild card at this point. Good luck of us figuring out what their over-under is. I'm sure Vegas has it, but I mean, with him out there, who even knows what this team's going to be? So, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to go under with you, Joe. It's kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have the Patriots in 16 and 18. That's like their one saving grace if they want to get to 11. But, I mean, Arizona, it would not shock me if they walked into or at least they get a home game against them. But it would not shock me if Arizona just came in there and beat the crap out of them.
Arizona's sneaky good this year. Again, we'll get to it when we get to these other teams, but like Arizona's sneaky good. Like I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, this, they're trash. They're going to follow what they did last year. No, I don't think so. I think they're going to be quite a bit better than they were last year. They just had to take a more roundabout way. They weren't not the Texans. They didn't just get there and fix everything. I think Gannon had quite a bigger mountain to climb this year. By the way, and another thing before we get to what potentially could be the worst team in the NFL, it's kind of hard to figure out who the worst team is going to be. Like you could almost make a case. Maybe the Panthers are probably not going to be great this season, but as a whole, it's kind of hard to figure out what the bad teams are going to be.
It really is this year more than others. I mean, you got Patriots, Panthers, and I mean, I guess Vegas, but they're pretty stacked everywhere else but quarterback. So, and I think Minshew's serviceable. It will be tough.
Yeah, maybe Denver. I don't know. Like it's just this is a weird year because there's just a bunch of teams where, like Minnesota, for example, like Minnesota on paper, I don't know. Like the team doesn't look great, but at the same time, I can't see Minnesota not being good with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, that offense. Like it's hard to imagine, but I don't know. I guess we'll see as this team goes on. But all right, without further ado, Joe, get us on to the last team in this division, the New England Patriots.
Oh, do I have to? All right, let's dive into the Patriots here. So Jared Mayo comes in as the coach. Belichickian dynasty continues here. And we got Alex Van Pelt as the new OC. He was fired by the Browns last year after they lost to the Texans, but his schemes are very run heavy with lots of play action. So pretty good when you have a new quarterback. I think that'll work out pretty well. Speaking of the new quarterback, Drake May with the third pick comes in. He's got all of the arm talent in the world. I think he's going to be a phenomenal quarterback. I don't think it's going to be right away. I think there's going to be a fair amount of growing pains. And, I mean, Brissett's probably going to start this year. I don't think anyone would argue with that. And then as Drake May grows, he can kind of come in and we'll see how he develops. But I like Drake May. I'm concerned with him not having a left tackle this year. Maybe that's the plan, is just put Brissett out there and let him get slaughtered. And then Drake May can come in next year once they have a left tackle in place, because they have nothing right now. The running backs, Ramondre, we love him here at Offensive Points. He did miss weeks 13 and on with an ankle injury, but he was RB19 during that time, and that offense was in shambles last year. So I think, full year recovered from the ankle injury, and then coming in, I think Ramondre he's going RB19. I mean, so he's going exactly where he finished last year. It's a very safe pick. I don't think you'll be upset with that. They also brought in Antonio Gibson. Now, Ezekiel Elliott caught 51 balls last year, and that was one of the big reasons that he was as successful as he was at the end of the year when Ramondre got hurt. He has a relationship with Jacoby Brissett already from the Commanders. So if Jacoby Brissett is starting week 1, I will be hammering Antonio Gibson in DraftKings, because I'm sorry, they're going to be playing catch up. I know the defense played a little bit better, but Antonio Gibson could start the year off with a 7-8 catch game. On that. So I love Antonio Gibson. He's going as RB49 right now. So, I mean, is it number 3 or sorry, not number 3, is number 4 guy on your team? Antonio Gibson's pretty solid. So you could go out and get him. Now we get to the pass catchers, Billy. And to tell you the absolute truth, I have no idea how to project this out. So we got Jaylen Polk's the exciting second rounder. He was a very solid player at Washington, but he was only great when Jalen McMillan missed time. So I don't think he was the best receiver available at that point of the draft, but we got him here. Solid contested catch dude. And then you got the other exciting one was Javon Baker out of UCF. He, of the 2 rookie wide receivers, I am much more excited about. He's got that dog in him. He's got that attitude. And it would not shock me if he went out and, became the wide receiver 1 by the end of the season, just because of his demeanor. But then we also have KJ Osborne, Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, OP favorite Kendrick Bourne. And then you got Rager, Butte, which we don't think anything is going to happen with them. But when I look at this, Billy, and I don't know if I'm tripping here, but I see a lot of guys that do roughly the same things. I don't understand how this group is going to shake out.
Well, they clearly don't want tall guys, Joe. That's clearly what they're telling you here. They do not value somebody who's going to contest, go up and win a 50-50 ball against a taller safety. They're clearly going for short passes, dump offs, and run. That's about it. I think that's just it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Demario Douglas. What we saw at him last year, he was very spicy out there, put up some good points. So if he does, in fact, get fed even more with a quarterback that can throw the ball, he could break out this year. Kendrick Bourne, we love the talent. He just signed a 3-year deal with them to stay, and he's been a more veteran presence in the locker room. And then you got a guy like KJ Osborne, where if you pair a guy like KJ Osborne with Drake May's arm talent, I could absolutely see that working out too. So there's a lot of guys that could kind of break out of the woodwork here. I'm probably avoiding this completely in drafts. I don't think. Yep. I mean, I've gotten Javon Baker a couple places. Polk's going way too early in Dynasty for me to take a shot at him, but I'm probably just going to avoid this whole scenario here. Then you got the tight ends. You got Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. Hunter Henry was tight end 19 last year. He had the MCL sprain, so he missed the end of the season. But I don't know, tight end 15, maybe. He's a touchdown-dependent tight end. I don't think a whole lot changes on this team other than what wide receiver breaks out.
Yeah, no, I don't want any part of this except for Ramondre Stevenson, if I can be honest. Nobody else on this team excites me. Even in Superflex, I don't even want Jacoby Brissett. Like, no thank you. No thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be like a rebuild year for them, and we'll see where we're at next year.
Yeah, no, this is a dark time up in New England, and I hope this year can be used as a chance to just figure out who's who and what's what. That's what this year should be for New England. Who's who, what's what. Because this team is not winning anything major. But you can figure out what pieces are potential growing pieces, what pieces you could trade away, what pieces need to be left off of the roster next season. This is a good chance for that. And if they're going to go for the number one pick, look, there's not, you don't need a quarterback. Not that there's one in this next draft anyway that you really need to go for. But there's some valuable defensive pieces that you could go for at the top of the next draft that could potentially change things. There's some decent running backs that could also, so Ramondre could be, on his way out for that reason. But I think this is a look to 2025. It's just it's a good time. It's a good time, gang. Joe, I think that's all we're doing this season.
Yeah, it'll definitely be. I'm going to be watching. Might try to float in Dynasty, like float some trades out for these wide receivers and see who you can land at a reasonable price, because I don't think taking a shot on Baker, Osborne, Polk, Bourne, Demario Douglas, I don't think any of those are bad. Again, Jalen Polk, people are valuing him a little bit too much for. I just don't understand what the plan was here. I know Jared Mayo comes in. I don't know if this is like a 1 year Lovie Smith situation, because they bitched about Belichick, and then they just brought in a Belichick understudy, who then brought in Covington on defense, DeMarcus Covington, who has also been with the Patriots forever. So it's kind of just a continuation of the regime, with the addition of a guy that got fired from the Browns because they got beat too bad by the Texans. So I don't know what they're doing. And the draft was unspectacular for me.
I think they looked in a mirror, Joe, and they're like, you know what? We're not beating the Bills. We're not beating Miami. And the Jets look like they've got a window right now. They're going to make a run. Let's just bow out this season. Let's just say whatever. Fine. Cool. Miami next season's going to have to figure out they're going to pay Tua. The Jets are on a ticking clock with Aaron Rodgers. The Buffalo Bills look like they're imploding from the outside. I mean, it's a complete – if they didn't have Josh Allen, let's be real, it'd be a complete rebuild for them.
It'll be ridiculous.
So, yeah, it would be a breakdown, everything, and tear it all down to the studs, and let's start over if they didn't have Josh Allen, which they have him. So the window's always cracked. I personally think it's closed, but it's always cracked with Josh Allen. So I think the Patriots maybe just saw what's going on around them, and I'm just like, you know what? This year we're just going to say whatever. We're going to develop some players. We're going to get Drake May a year under his belt. But next year is when we actually start trying again to actually win 7-8 games.
I like that idea. That's got to be what it is, because on paper, I just don't see. I mean, the defense started playing pretty good at the end of the year last year. And
I like the defense.
Yeah.
If this was an IDP, if we were going to just strictly talk about IDP, I love everything about this defense. Judon, Barmore, Keon White, I think, is making a jump this season. Peppers is good. Duggar is good. Christian Gonzalez is coming back from injury. He was fantastic last season. But this is an offensive podcast, so we just got to kind of smile and wave.
Keon White is a breakout candidate, folks. He's a sleeper. Go get Keon White.
1,000%. You are.
Getting Judon back on the other side for him.
Whew. It's going to be nasty. The defense side, again, it's going to make them not like high-scoring games, at least. Like, that's the only good part, as to where they might have an opportunity. It's kind of like the Jets. Like, the Jets always had a chance to win with that defense, as long as they're building towards that. And if they get James Pierce, the number one defensive end next season, like, watch out. This team is fucking really good. Anywho, let's get on to the win total for New England. It is 4.5, which is the worst in the NFL going into the season, according to DraftKings. It's currently plus 340 or plus 340 right now for them to have the fewest regular season wins. Not a bad bet. I don't love it because the Panthers are next with plus 500, which I might go with that just in case. But plus 300, Joe, they're projected to be the worst team in the NFL. We're talking about them.
Yeah. Oh, they really are. The schedule, we got the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Jets, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Titans, the Bears, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Colts. We got a week 14 bye week. So if you are investing in fantasy, keep an eye out for that one. And then we have the Cardinals, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Bills again.
I'm going under, but it's not impossible that they could get to 5. It's not impossible.
No. I mean, you could think they could dink and dunk their way to a couple of these wins here, but it is a pretty stout schedule starting off.
The problem, Joe, with this year, there's nobody to tank for. Like last season, you were tanking for Caleb or potentially tanking for Drake May, or if you really wanted to go for it, Jaden Daniels. This next draft doesn't have anybody to tank for, really. I mean, there's some really good pieces that can really make your team a little better at a different position. But as far as like actual number one guy that you're definitely going to put in and they're definitely going to change the course of your franchise, not really looking at him at the top of this next draft. So there's no real reason to tank this next season,
There isn't, unless Elliott Wolf thinks he's going to pull a Ryan Poles-esque trade for number one, because they already have their quarterback and rebuild that franchise quickly. But again, I mean, I just assume a quarterback's going to come out of the woodwork this year.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm the one that's locked in on college. I just don't know this year. It's dark. It's dark going in. It's not as dark as 2021. I will give you that. That was a really, really dark offseason or dark season of going into. But this one, it's still pretty rough as far as the quarterbacks go. Hopefully you don't need one. Hopefully your team's not the Giants or somebody who probably could use one. That would be rough spot. All right. Well, that wraps up this division. Joe, I mean, according to us, it kind of feels like we have maybe the Jets winning, which is interesting. Didn't think we were going to go that way. Jets or Miami. That's kind of who I think is going to win this division. Who would you pick personally between those two to win this division?
I mean, if Rodgers stays healthy, the Jets defense to me is just absolutely insane. So I would say the Jets, but Dolphins could do it.
Who would have thought?
Tua scares me under pressure, man.
He does, because at the end of the day, what quarterback do you trust the most on these teams? And although Aaron Rodgers is old as dirt, it's probably still him. Like if we were talking about the crunch time of winning a game, it would probably be him, even though we have not seen it. Even injury aside, last year in Green Bay, we didn't really see the killer instinct there either. But it's hard to argue against that good defense and the weapons. At least Breece Hall is a great one running back, and then Garrett Wilson has proven so far that he can make something happen if you just give him somebody who can get him the ball. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think it's the Jets, and that's already know we're going to be wrong just because it's the Jets, Joe. Like I already know, like it's a disaster incoming for us.
That's never a good sign. We need a shaman to bless that trade or
never a good sign at all. All right, well that wraps up the AFC East. Josh may or may not be back next week. We'll see what happens. He's kind of a loose cannon of the OP podcast if we had to pick somebody out. Next week, we're going to be talking AFC West, Super Bowl champions, new look Chargers, the Raiders going, I don't know who's playing on this team, but let's just play. I love that stop. By the way, the Raiders are going to be one of the most fun teams to talk about because the entire roster on offense is built around, I don't know. Let's see what happens. And I kind of love that. That's the kind of wild cardness you need in this league. And then the Broncos, the poor Broncos. We'll get to them and Sean Payton. But all right, Joe. That being said, get us out of here.
Good night.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.